Word from our sponsors.
Hi, this is Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of Retail Resilient. Car dealers all over the country love working with us. We have two product solutions that they absolutely love using. The first product solution is a Facebook and Instagram school. We also have a campaign management program where we generate leads for them. Our car dealers typically say to us, I had the highest grossing month in the history of my business. I'm up double in my volume year over year. And we absolutely love helping car dealers. So give us a try, give us a shout. We would love to see if we're a fit to work with you.
Hi, this is Barry Jordan from whitegloveperformancegroup.com. I'd like to take a few moments of your time to share how we can make you more profitable. Dealerships all over North America are using our cloud-based power dialing platform, Touchpoint, to manage their outbound sales-generating phone calls. With Touchpoint, your agents can make up to 50 calls an hour. Leave a voicemail, send an email with a link to a video or to your website, all with a click of the mouse. We specialize in empowering your teams to make the calls that make the sales. How can Touchpoint help you increase profit? Check us out, whitegloveperformancegroup.com.
Hi everyone, I'm John Latka from Automotive Business Solutions, where we help dealerships build more productive and proactive by appointment sales cultures through our Performance Management Partnership Program. So, if you want to increase your sales volume by 2 to 3 sales per month per salesperson, call our toll-free number, 877-708-8484 for a free consultation.
Thank you very much. And now it's a couple books. So Daniel H. Pink, To Sell is Human, Never Be Closing with Tim Thurston and Tim Dunn, and How to Win Friends and Influence People, a classic, Dale Carnegie. Go ahead, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon or evening, wherever you're watching us. Thank you for joining us. We always read our disclaimer just to let you know the views and opinions of everybody here are those of themselves, and whether we agree or not, they don't necessarily reflect our opinion. So there you go. We're off the hook.
And the show today is Does Your Process Suck or Does Your Sales Process Suck show. So let's go. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, thanks again. And we have our illustrious group of guests joining us today. And we're very proud to have some pretty neat people here, as well as all of our sponsors have joined us today. So this is really good. And so our first guest is somebody who needs no introduction to the AutoHub crowd, the man of dulcet tones, John Latka, the CEO and founder of Automotive Business Solutions in that vacation capital of Canada, Halifax, Nova Scotia. John, just take a moment, say hi to everybody.
Thanks, Jeff, and hi, everyone. As most of you are probably aware, I have over 30 years of sales management and leadership experience within the automotive industry, along with a background in psychosocial rehabilitation. Now at Automotive Business Solutions, we offer performance and HR related consulting, along with sales and management training through seminars and workshops. We also coordinate and host sales events. In addition, we've developed performance management software that's available on a subscription basis. And we offer ongoing partnerships through our Performance Management Partnership Program to help dealers elevate individual and team performance. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you, much appreciated. And coming from another vacation capital of the world, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, is Brandy Lindgren, who's the Director of Development and Sport of Disclose, which frankly, that sounds like a rock band or a rapper. And Brandy of Brandy Solutions. Brandy, take a moment to introduce yourself and thank you for joining us.
First off, thank you so much for having me. It looks like a really awesome panel, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I have been in auto finance, auto industry since I was 19, so held a huge variety of different positions from reception right up to GSM. I am currently working on a system that actually helps with process, and profit. It's called Disclose. So for more information, you can visit the website, request a demo, www.disclose, spelled DISKLOZ.ca.
Thank you very much. Again, it still sounds like you should be a rapper. And you know, you've been in the business.
Hey, if it's catchy, I don't care.
Yeah. You've done so much in your 6 years in the business.
No, yeah, thank you.
And last but not least for our guest today is Brian Maxwell, who's an automotive sales and process trainer with Sales Professionals of America. A very shy guy. He admitted that himself. He's only not on camera because his house is being torn apart by people. And actually, he's the only person here that isn't located in a vacation place in Florida. Brian, take a moment to introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you, Jeff and Ian, for having me on. Brian Maxwell, owner and founder of Sales Professionals of America Recruiting. For the last 20 years of little over 20 years of experience as far as in sales processing and sales training in the automotive niche. And for the last decade, have been working with major dealer groups around the country, helping them increase the performance of their sales team members by just going back to basics, man, and picking things up from the beginning and taking them step by step throughout the potential process and helping them just evolve their thinking and performances. And actually right now, I just released a really cool digital product for salespeople. So if any stores have any salespeople that really need some help and they say, you know, we just want to get these guys a quick pickup, they can go to SPOAR.us, check out some of the free training resources and get started there, or you know, and I'll get a little bit more into whatever else is offered later on. But I appreciate you guys for having me on, man.
Thanks so much, Brian.
I appreciate you taking your time, Ian.
Yeah. What is sales process and why is it important to have one? Let's start with Brian.
Well, I mean, as we know, process is everything. It's like, I like to equate it to baking a cake, right? If we were going to bake a cake and we had eggs, milk, flour, and sugar, you know, if I took 30 eggs, 30 pounds of flour, 20 pounds of sugar, and, you know, 10 gallons of milk and mixed it together, I'd probably make slop. But if I took 3 eggs, a cup and a half of flour, maybe 2 cups of milk, and, you know, made my measurements better, I could have a better chance of baking a cake. And sales is like that. You can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't know how to put them together in the right place at the right time, it'll all fall apart. And I think in the automotive industry right now, we kind of have the backwards way of thinking, where when stores are making money and doing well like they did through COVID and their profits are at their peak, this is the time where you got those extra profits, invest in your team. But it seems like what'll happen, or what's happening, is as the numbers are starting to trickle down, and they're going up against their numbers from last year, they'll wait till they start sucking again and then say, hey, we need you to come on in and fix it. So we just need more of a proactive approach as far as on process improvement, not waiting till the numbers are bad or till somebody's struggling, but being proactive and taking them while they're on that hot month and helping them stay consistent with that, learning what they did good, what they can improve on, and really taking that and working with them. So I think that's extremely critical.
So more of a long-term approach as opposed to a short-term panic approach?
Absolutely, have to.
Brandy, what do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't agree more. The consistency is everything. The big thing is retention of staff equals retention of clients equals retention of staff equals retention of clients. So like, you know, those opening videos really touch base on that, especially. Without process, you don't have either. And you'll see in the stores that have bad process, they have terrible turnover. And you have to ask yourself which comes first, because what's happening, these guys come into these stores, they're bringing their bad habits, they're bringing what may have worked at a different store, they're disrupting your sales process with such. So not having something to stick to your guns makes all the difference, absolutely. And I like exactly what Brian said. People are so gauging themselves on what they did yesterday, what they did last month, what they did last year, what the last guy did. How about tell me what you missed? Because without a process, you can't tell me anything you missed. And that's where your key is. That's where you're going to make up all your money. That's where your process falls apart. And that has all the influence in.
Thanks. And Mr. Latka.
Well, I mean, I'm in agreement with Brian when it comes to process. I love his analogy about baking a cake. And really, sales process is simply something that should be a set of documented and well-defined steps that salespeople take to help a prospect buy a vehicle. right?
Period.
It's pretty straightforward. And automotive dealerships have or should have many processes in place that are documented, can be referenced and shared with everyone, so everyone is on the same page.
And in your experience, do you find that that's something that's missing in a lot of cases?
I can tell you, yes, I believe it is missing in a lot of places. And I've helped dealers over the years put together policies and procedures manuals, including manuals on the sales process. Don't know if you can see this. There's an example. And within that, each step of the sales process is broken down into sub-steps. So not much different than, having the well-defined steps. For example, if a pilot is about to take off, or actually even long before they take off, they go into the cockpit. And do you think they have a process to follow and a checklist?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Same with the takeoff, same as while they're in the air, same as the landing. And it shouldn't be any different for processes within a dealership. And when we have a standardized sales process, basically what we're doing is we're adding structure and accountability to sales activities that in turn should lead to higher closing ratios and more sales.
Can I piggyback on what John was just talking about real quick, because he said it so eloquently, and just to find out if in Canada they're going through the same thing. You got 3 tiers to me of dealerships. You got your low performers, you got your average tier stores, and then you got your guys that go get it. They meet and exceed. And one thing that I've noticed, all stores are investing monthly marketing dollars. Let's just say, I won't go astronomical, let's say $50,000 a month. I think everybody will agree that's a fairly average number that a store spends in marketing. So they'll do that and get, let's say, a 12%, 15% return on that, as far as where they're investing in it. And out of 100% of the people they touch, 15% come in. That's 85% that they're losing. And what I'm finding is that the top tier stores really value what John was talking about, was not just having documented processes though, but making sure that every week, everybody is having those skills tested, refined, spoken about, worked on, role played. The average stores, they try to do their best, but it's always playing the, hurry up and catch up. We gotta work every day to the last buzzer, to the bell buzzer rings, try to make these numbers. And the low producing stores just kind of throw people out there, see what stick, and their turnover mill are just ridiculous. Are you finding that the same thing over there in you guys' locations, that those that invest in the resources and documented processes and have the people in place to make sure that they're touching their team members are having the same results like we're seeing here in the States?
Absolutely. It's no different. And I would say that, we can go international with that one, Brian. And further to your point, dealerships that don't have a continuous improvement plan in place are going to suffer in the long run, because they have a lot of ups and downs versus people that have built-in continuous improvement programs like our performance management partnership program.
I love your plugs.
I just had to plug that in there. They see a gradual and upswing in sales on a regular basis.
The larger groups are not successful by accident. They're successful because of process, because of continuous improvement, but more importantly, investing in their staff. They also don't have the same turnover problems for exactly the same reason. I think that's 100% true. As when you look at in the U.S. market, one of the biggest groups just bought a big Canadian group. They're going to bring that process here, so it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. But realistically, great process is important. But the smaller and sort of inconsistent stores just don't have that. They haven't invested in it. So. And
when you walk into those good producing stores too, and you're going to do business with them, you feel it. because it's like the management staff is greeting you. The sales team is excited. They're ready to get started. You go to the average tier stores, you might have 2 or 3 stragglers coming in when the class is supposed to start. Management doesn't have as much control. And then the low producing stores, hell, you're standing there waiting like, man, listen, where your people at? Is your management going to get them in? And when you get done training, walking out the door, a manager is going to disregard everything you just told them because they're never going to follow up and check. So checks and balances and how you treat your people, how you treat your staff. Remember, they're your sales. Those are your customers, and treating them how you want them to treat their customers. The trickle down effect, again, like we spoke about before the show.
Yeah,
Now, Brian, you mentioned in there about checklists. And the manager that you just talked about is going to be the one that tells you about checklists and pilots. Was it you or John that mentioned checklists? I'm sorry.
Yep. John mentioned it.
Okay, so my apologies.
It'd be me.
It'd be you. So you mentioned checklists, and it came to mind that I actually watched Captain Phillips, not Captain Phillips, the one about the plane on the Hudson, Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how he ignored the process. And that's what saved their lives. And that'll be that one manager that John talked about that said, yeah, but look at him. He saved everybody's life by ignoring the checklist. So moving right along.
Yeah, he closed the deal. He didn't do 4 of those steps, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So these days, and Brian, you did mention that too, through COVID, a lot of dealers were very, very successful. And they probably got there in spite of themselves. And so does achieving objectives actually mean that your dealership's processes are good? And truly, how does a dealership determine if their sales processes suck, even if they're achieving objectives? And I'll go to Brandy because she's been quiet while John and Brian took over.
And we all know that's unusual, so. I'm not swearing first. That's all I care about. This episode, I am not the first to swear.
No cursing.
Right? Yeah, I can't promise, actually. Who am I kidding? So first off, yes, like define achieving, right? Because what are we achieving against? We're achieving against, again, who was in our seat last, who was doing sales last, the team the last guy had. There's always adjustments and concessions made on all of those variables. I think, this is the thing also about talking about missed opportunity. Without those checks and balances in the first place, without actually tracking, monitoring, and having that system in place, and that's fully loaded to say that, because I've seen dealers track their stuff on Excel spreadsheets, and I'm not talking 1, I'm talking 3.
Yeah.
What just happened here? We're allowing 3 different places for error, miscommunication, all of it. So I think that the problem with them achieving, they're grading themselves against what they were doing before. The stores that actually hustled and made out okay are the ones that hustled on the ones that didn't. All they did was that when dealers were, there was a group here local, I'm not going to say, but I heard of a notice when COVID first started of them being sent home. We're going to wash our, and very early. And so what did the rest of the stores do? The smart stores, they hustled and they made it happen. And the unfortunate part with that, though, it wasn't just because they had a process. It's because they hustled when they needed to, right? They picked up where the last one didn't. I still don't think that dictates that you, by any means or measure, are a successful dealer, though, unfortunately, in my own opinion.
No, I tend to agree with that. Brian, your take on this?
I agree with Brandy on that wholeheartedly. And another thing, for any general managers or managing partners or dealer principals that may be listening, more so the GMs, and again, I'd like to hear, how you guys feel about this. When you're speaking with a general manager, they're very prideful guys or ladies, people. They work their way up. Many of them start from the ground and got to the top. And so they trust themselves, right? So they're running this tight ship, and somebody like us reaches out. You typically, hey, we got it. We're good. Da, 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 da. And the first person to go when the ship starts sinking is the same person that told you we don't need you. So I really believe that the willingness to do what dealerships want their customers to do, which is listen, is what more GMs, managing partners, or dealer principals should do. You may be doing fine today, but what about next month? What about 6 months from now? What about a year from now? Because when you get that pink slip and you're not there anymore, and that $300,000, $500,000 a year job is gone, what are you going to do then? It's too late. So it's just more so about being proactive rather than reactive, on top of what Brandy has shared.
You're right, Brian. Sorry, and I just want to add to that, because that's just it. They are very quick to react after the fact. And I think that's the ticket there, is that if we're If you know, here's the difference between you and me, Brian, versus, and even John versus somebody in staff. We're actually here to work on it for you. You work in it, you continue working in it, you build what you have in front of you. Let us look at your process. Let us look where we see as an unbiased opinion where you might be lagging. It doesn't cost you anything at the same time. So sometimes, I hate to say it, we are all full of ego. That's why we're here. But we do have to kind of check that before it's too late. Don't be reactive. Actually, let us take an unbiased look at what you're doing and give an opinion. If we're wrong, no problem.
Right, we'll leave.
Right? My time. It's on my time.
Do you take a look for free? Just kidding. Moving along, John, your take on that?
I do.
I would. Absolutely, I would.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
All right, so we're still on, does achieving mean that a dealership's processes are good? And the answer to that is, from my perspective, no. Success can hide a lot of sins, right?
Yep.
Achievement doesn't mean that your process is good or it's being followed. It just means that at this point in time, whether it's COVID or something else that's helped you hit or exceed your target, may not be process related. So really, what you need to do is ensure that you are able to track individual and teams' sales process related activities. If you can do that, you can then see where your opportunities for improvement are, and then focus on those to help individuals and teams get better and be more successful.
Well, I have to say something too. When we're talking about processes, doing it right, there's also process pivoting. And I saw an ad the other day, you know, we've all seen it. We drive by dealers now and there's 7-acre lots full of 19 cars. And you see them very creatively try to fill the lot with
staff parking.
Yeah, but Ford has now come out. I don't know if in the States, but in Canada, they've now come out with a program, a factory order program, because they know the factory is going to start tooling up. But to keep people from going and just keep, you know, owning them, they change that process.
Whoa.
Ian.
Yeah, following up on the previous question, who should make the decisions on process? And then those responsibilities, then who's going to interact it? So let's just say the manager makes the decision. Who's then going to do the work? Like, who's actually going to make it happen? So let's start.
I am.
Go ahead.
Did you want me to go on that one, Ian?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right, so it should be leadership and management making the decisions on the process and make sure that they're enacted. The challenge with that is, and I don't know if you've heard this old adage, but a fish rots from the head down. Now, what this means is, generally speaking, leadership is the root cause of failure. Oftentimes, they have too much on their plate to actually make sure that things are running the way they should be running. And that's where folks like us come in to be able to help do some of the heavy lifting that they might do initially, but they're not going to be consistent with it. It's not going to last.
That's a great point.
If I can interject there, how many of you have had the people at the top come to you to say, well, we didn't achieve because my manager didn't do it?
Right, that's happened. Well, no, very rarely will somebody really talking about from the sales rep side or from the management side. Management doesn't really like to take blame when things don't go right. It typically falls down on the sales associates. But like John said though, is that a lot of times the general manager or GSM is making process decisions when they're so far removed from the actual day-to-day contact sport of the game. They're making it based off what they might have went through as opposed to real world what's happening today, which is why one of the things I did when I changed up how I was going into stores, I'm very hands-on with the team members as far as in real world applicable methods that you can use today. Not saying 20 years ago was bad, but the consumers have changed. Technology has changed. Information flow has increased. So you got people's attention span that went from 20 minutes in the 80s to 8 seconds today. That same long out kind of boring way of question asking or interrogation is not going to work today. But if you just tell a person go do something without explaining the psychological benefit for the customer and themselves, on where if you do this, here's how to benefit them and will in turn benefit you and help you achieve this, they're not going to do it no matter what goal you're trying to reach. So again, it all circles back to really identifying the needs and wants of your team members or your customers, and then using that to get your information flow on how your processes should adjust to help them achieve that. So that's just, my 2 cents.
Mhm.
Yeah, you did nail it one wholeheartedly, because actually, so on the part of being removed, that's just it. Who is actually making these rules? It's the people that aren't even involved in that process, often the suits. The other side is exactly what Brian said, the why, understanding the why. Here's the difference of working in it and on it, and actually constantly being conscious of working on it, right? Because if we're not talking about it, if we don't understand the why, nobody will follow suit. That's almost a guarantee. They don't understand and they feel like they already have a better way and they're justified in their actions. So educating constantly on why, and actually keeping it an open conversation. Nobody
Great.
wants to be dictated, nobody.
Right.
So, hey, where's going to make me feel the difference is because my employer actually asked me what's going to make the difference in my department. What is going to directly relate to me? Keeping involved with your staff and asking those questions all the time.
Thanks for that, Brandy. Jeff?
That's a very good point, I do have to say, because so often, and Brian said it, person at the top says this is process, and then it goes down to somebody below them that says, well, yeah, okay, that's a pretty good idea. Yeah, but I don't like this part. Then it goes to the person below. And in the end, the salesperson sitting there at the end going, well, I didn't know that because da 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 da. But it's very true. It should be the person. Everybody should be bought into that process, not just the person at the top that makes that decision. So how can a dealer ensure that this process that they find so great is followed through the sales department and frankly other departments, because process is everywhere? And John, you're the person looking at me closest right now.
Well, sure, pick on me.
Exactly.
Well, listen, one of the best ways, one of the easiest ways that I found over the years is it's called observation, management by walking around. When I was managing at a dealership, very seldom would you find me in my office behind my desk. I'd be out on the floor interacting with the sales staff, trying to find out where they are, how I can help them move on to getting an appointment, getting a deal, getting a test drive, etc. The other way to do that, of course, is through technology. And to Brandy's point, some people are still using Excel spreadsheets, right? When there is and there are software options out there, one that we developed relates to performance management relative to steps within the sales process. And by following these, it's easy for us to determine whether or not the process is being used. The other benefit is we can determine where within the process we have opportunities to improve so that we can sell even more vehicles at a higher closing ratio.
Wow, that was. Can I follow John up? Because one of the things I want to say is that what they can do to improve it, especially here in the States, is contact Sales Professionals of America Recruiting and Brian Maxwell. That's one very rapid and a very effective way to really increase
Great
it.
plug, great plug.
But like on top of what Brandy said, as far as with the technology part, one of the things that I do see is that, I go into stores and they've got the newest technology, the customer management systems, but guess what? Their team members and management members have zero idea of the full functionality, the benefits of using it. Yeah, they might basically type in a customer name and use it for the basic stuff, but the true benefit.
Oh,
Where's Brian?
You went mute.
Process improving the time saving that they would do. Most of the people within the business have no idea it exists. So that's where I got a person like a John's company or Brandy's company or somebody like myself would do like she stated. You guys sling iron. That's what you do. I come in and prepare your soldiers to be the best iron slingers for you. So it's not us working against each other. It's us working together to create one common goal, create synergy, which is.
Oh, we lost him again.
Ah, those darn workers, they keep cutting off his
Instead of people, sorry, folks, people were calling in. I'm sorry, they seeing me on the show and they're calling me. But instead of looking at us as an expense or a cost, it's an investment. And the thing is, that investment could be once every 3 months, but think about the profits they get long term. So, just again, over with mine, man.
You know, I think, Ian, we have to create I think we need another level of sponsors for this show. We've got our platinum, our gold, our silver. Now we need bronze and copper and etc. You know, actually, John's already there, so just bronze and copper. We'll let Brandy and Brian do an arm wrestle for who can be that. I forget who I asked.
I'm betting on Brandy.
Oh, good answer,
Yeah.
John.
Probably Brandy, but before I say that, Brian, you mentioned something there very interesting, that dealers have all these softwares. And I go back long enough to the business, we've talked about it many a time on the show, where dealers used to have closets full of tapes that they would give some trainer.
Yes.
For all the tapes, and they were covered in dust.
Yeah.
And I actually worked for a dealer that had fancy stuff, had CRM, but wouldn't let their salespeople touch it. They made them turn in sheets every day. They'd print off their to-do list. They'd make them call people, handwrite it in. They'd turn it in every day because they just wouldn't trust their salespeople to do it right. But Brandy, I'm going to ask you, because I don't think you're the person that answered this one. How does a dealer ensure that their processes are followed through?
Well, it's so fully loaded. I agree with everybody's comments. The big thing is data. Data is so valuable. Data is so valuable on every level. And this is, you know, when I was creating Disclose, where my mind goes with things is where the missed opportunity lies. That is where I focus. I started at groups and, you know, overlooked departments, overlooked a store, overlooked a branch. And my manic mind goes to that part is I want to see, you know, what you actually missed. You can tell me you're great and you can tell me your per car average is this and you can tell me you do this many sales. But where I'm looking on Dealer Track, and this is, again, you know, we say we have technology, but Dealer Track is only so good as submissions. It isn't tracking talking. It isn't tracking, you know, test drive. It isn't tracking even just a customer showing inquiry. And that's kind of with me, and how I created Disclose was I struggled with training. I struggled myself. I have my own way of doing things. I'm a full disclosure salesperson. I use all of the data about the vehicle to walk myself through the process. But I struggled in explaining this to people. And this is the part as well that's such a disconnect, is that we get off on track of what actually, you know, the breakdown of the process. You know, the tracking of the actual first inquiry, the tracking of the inquiry to the sale or inquiry to the test drive. What does that process look for you? You know, that next tracking of from actual sale and agreed numbers to delivery. What needs to be done in that whole factor? So there are so many things that happen. And I found my biggest thing with creating the system was my struggles in keeping it all aligned, tracking what was missed, tracking the positives, tracking where we are right in front of our face, a dashboard that's telling you at all times. So, you know, I can say, you know, why is sales process important and how do we ensure? This is the very thing I struggled with, which is what actually inspired me to create this program.
You know, all of you have said this, but I'm very disappointed, all of you, because not one of you have said the exact term that the inmates are running the asylum. I was waiting for that, because when we wrote this question, that's what popped into my mind, because all three of you have heard it. I've heard most of the people on this call. I certainly know Gail has heard it, and I try to say it to I really try not to say it as well, because I can't get my people to do it.
Wow.
And
automation is important.
Who mentioned the word leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get your people to do it?
I think it goes back to what I stated earlier, which is the best stores that I've ever worked with, when you talk to their managers about their team members, it's not just, hey, that's Rick or that's Sue over there. They know very detailed about what's these people's lives are like. Everybody's not motivated by money. And every store is always like, hey, get the big commission check. Somebody doesn't care about that. One person just might want to get that certificate that says they're the best at it. They did a great walk around. Just the recognition alone. One person may want to move and be able to rent a nice house. Maybe want to put their kid in private school. Everybody has different motivations. And it's about finding out what those individual motivations are and then putting together, showing them how the process that you have at your store, if they follow these steps with these people and do it this way, will help them achieve what they want, rather than pushing it as just for the store. Because when you're telling everybody, do it for the store, and then somebody needs to take time off to take their kid to the doctor, and it's almost like they're being interrogated and fear getting fired, how motivated are they really to go all out for you, because you didn't go all out for them when it was your time. So I think the stores got to stop preaching this company and dealership first and go people first. And they'll realize when it's the people first, the people in turn will fight for the store relentlessly. The number one reason people leave jobs is not money, it's lack of appreciation and recognition. And I think most dealerships forget that.
That's tremendous point. That's a tremendous point. Brandy?
Well, and that's just even exactly that, Brian, kind of adding that to your checklist of things to do. Appreciation. You see all these dealers and their social media and they're doing these shout outs and, for various reasons, obviously, it's a great marketing tool. But, that's like, Brian, I'm going to ask you, John, I'm going to ask you, does it matter the store you deal with? Can you go to just any store and work with them? Or does it matter that they have a culture and there's a buy-in and they actually have to care about caring?
I can go anywhere and work with anybody if they're receptive.
If they're receptive, yes.
Here's the thing. Okay, for example, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Right.
Okay, so like Brian, I can go in and help any dealership, but first of all, they have to recognize that they have an issue, and then they want a solution, right? In my background in psychosocial rehabilitation, working for a social services agency, we provided housing and rehabilitative services for people recovering from psychiatric illness. To get into this program, you had to show that what you were interested in was more than just housing. You wanted to have the rehabilitative services. You wanted to learn what you needed to move into a better situation, whether it's living more independently, whether it's getting back to work, etc. But the key is you have to want to.
Exactly.
I apologize, John. I wasn't laughing at you. It's a very good point.
Yes, you were.
Gail just shared something on TikTok about a screenshot of everybody here, and there's that TikTok thing where people go, and they do all this thing with their hands, and geez, I popped up. I'm sorry, and it was all of us here, so I apologize for being so rude.
That's
Okay,
what she was recording.
We all need a copy of that, okay?
I was TikToking the AutoHub show for you guys.
I love it. I love
Perfect.
it. It's just that, I wanted to sit there. I don't know how to do it, but I've seen it,
And Brandy asked a good question. I want to ask a question too. How do y'all feel about this? I also believe that, to follow up on that last question, for them to stay consistent and whatnot, it's got to be more than just a one-time shot.
Absolutely.
Team members, they watch and they notice when a store implements something new and then it phases out. As a matter of fact, they begin whenever something new rolls out, they like, okay, yeah, this only be around for a week. And so whenever they bring something new, it's ineffective because they know you can't inspect what you can't expect. You can't track what you can't measure. So a lot of times the sales team members know nobody's going to follow up with this. I think it should be more, if you talk to John or Brandy or myself, it's not just, hey, come in, it's going to be a miracle fix. It's consistency. If they see us coming back the next month or every quarter for a year, they say, wow, the store is really committed to helping us get better and it's working. That has an impact on their mentality too. And there they see you. They know you're there to help them. They know the store is investing in them. That creates a level of confidence that goes a long way. But they bring somebody in one time and year and no one else and implement this and it phases out. they get used to that, and so nothing excites them. So I think stores have to watch out for that too.
And you know,
Absolutely.
not to just promote your services, which we don't mind either, but the fact is that that person at the top needs somebody to tell them what's happening, because really I don't know of anybody, including the people we saw in the video, Branson and Bezos and everything else, that doesn't have somebody in the background. Wait a minute. Listen, Dick, your buddy, you're missing something here because you're on your balloon and your spacecraft, but your team's missing this. So that's a very good point.
They're afraid to tell the emperor that he's wearing no clothes, huh?
You try to tell Bezos that one.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. One of the dealerships that we worked with, the general sales manager referred to us as their voice of reason.
Now that's excellent. When you're seen like that by the GSM, that's awesome.
Well, and you're
Yeah.
right though, because the unbiased opinion is actually what matters. You know, when you look at these stores and these groups of staff work together, I hate to say it, but you're not holding each other accountable. You really
Nope.
aren't. You
Mm-mm.
are being biased to your teammate, and us coming in can give you the goods without anybody's feathers being ruffled. There are no internal relationships ruined. It's an honest opinion from the outside working on it. It's like a relationship. It's like a bad relationship. You don't know how bad it is until you get out, right?
Yep.
The
Yep.
other thing I liked what Brian said is the inspect what you expect. This is the consistency of it all. Like, you know, you can implement all these little small one-liners, these tools, but unless you're actually looking at it and refining it constantly, it is not going to happen. And then of course the breakdown of it all, right? So yeah.
And I think it's all easy. Why not have a monthly demo contest? It don't have to be just one day, but throughout the course of a month, everybody's got to do a demo on a specific vehicle. Why not do a overcoming objections contest every month? Not just one day, but on a scheduled day for just maybe 30 minutes. You grab team members in and you go through, you hit them with some objections, see how they overcome them. These are very simple things that don't cost any money, you know, not to mess ourselves up, but they're things. And why not print off some certificates and give it to them if they did a great demo, they overcame objections. Let their customers see how they work on their skill set. Let that person be proud to bring their family into their office. These are little things that I do with my dealer clients, and they say, man, we never thought about that. But guess what? Walkarounds are through the roof. Customer interaction is through the roof. As far as overcoming objections and closing deals is through the roof. Why? We just took something and made a game out of what's typically daily process. We made it something that you can get recognized for.
Yeah, well, the thing that always used to amaze me when I sold cars was that the objections, and even when I train dealers, the objections that customers come up with aren't usually all that different.
No,
Most salespeople don't know how to overcome them because they're just not prepared. So it's really a question to your point of, okay, let's talk about the top 5 to 10 or the top 3 to 5, and let's get prepared. Let's prepare for the day.
You're right, but we're so focused on actually what's in front of our face. The other thing that just that you said, Brian, that hit me, and this is one thing that I've been thinking about lately, is I loved debate. When I was in high school, I was all up for a good debate, and it wasn't to be you know, confrontational. It's the best way to explore data. It's the best way to explore facts. So, you know, these dealer groups that are in groups that actually have more than one manufacturer and they compete, why is that not something? Let's get 2 guys debating the minivan. Let's see why yours is better than mine, and spring off of each other, learn off of each other, use that. They're going to throw objectives they've heard equally from each other. So why not debate it out and be ready for those objectives?
Yep.
Well,
and
the
not
reason-
realizing, oh, go ahead.
Oops. Well, I was going to say that, you know, the biggest challenge here that I see from my perspective is that we've become more of a transactional industry than a relational industry. So we're so focused on getting the next deal that we're not necessarily investing in our people. As Brian said earlier, we'll invest tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing initiatives, but we'll spend nothing on training or upgrading our people.
Who are going to deal with the marketing dollars, the people from the marketing dollars that was spent? It's the craziest oxymoron in the world to me.
It's so funny because you mentioned about all this software that people are buying and nobody's using it. Like, you know, you look at the new people everybody's ragging on, or the new person to rag on now is Dealer Socket because of all their changes they've made. But how many people know the depth of a program like Dealer Socket? How many people
And
know the depth of a program like Dealer Track?
goes
And
deep.
they've all got this thing, and they're looking at it as just a list of customers.
Right. Well, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, I was just laughing.
So was I. Well, you know, when it comes to software, one of the biggest challenges is that many of the companies that have developed software for the automotive industry are just that. They're software developers. They're not necessarily in tune with what's actually taking place in the showroom.
Right.
And the other factor is that they don't make it necessarily for the end user. And I consider the end user to be the sales staff, right? And
Yep.
if it's not easy for them to use, if they can't necessarily understand it, they're not going to use it. Certainly nowhere near potential. I can tell you that the software that we developed, we made it specific to the end user. It's easy to use, and salespeople that are using it just simply love it because of its simplicity and the focus on things that matter. So we focus on the critical few rather than the insignificant many, which can get in the way.
It's something
Okay.
simple like being able to send a video in your email. Yeah, I'm realizing just how many of these customer management systems can do that, but how few. I think the last time we checked, it was like less than 15% of actual team members even used it, but there was a greater percentage that didn't. I mean, less percentage, like 50%, that didn't even know it existed. We had did it with one group, but it's just little things like that. I apologize, Brandy.
No, you know what? I was just going to take my opportunity to get a plug in here. So,
Go
you know,
for it.
so the system, actually, my system, the tagline is the dealer system that drives buyer confidence. And that's the thing. We talk about transactional. You know, you had said it's gone so far transactional, and John, that was perfectly said, because I'm going to point exactly one example. How many stores are actually calling just to say hi? How many stores have their salespeople saying, hey, do you know, like, what is it? 30% of people know somebody buying a car. If I'm going to tell you right now, the reason that people don't answer the dealership's call is because they're always calling for a sale. Always.
Yeah.
It's not to wonder how I'm doing. It's not to see if, hey, do you know anybody that is in the market? Can I be of service? Can I be of service to you? I just saw you were in for service. How can we help? Make sure you see me for a car wash. I'll get your car wash. Make sure. We always call for a reason. We're never calling for nothing. And you know what? You want to start changing that culture with your database of people. Call them just to say hi. It's pretty simple.
That is so brilliant. I have to say that reminded me of one of our shows. We discussed this, but out here in BC and Western Canada, predominantly, one of the biggest dealer groups there is the Jim Pattison Auto Group. And Jim Pattison is a self-made multi-billionaire who's all over the car business, retail, mining, grocery stores, you name it.
Advertising.
And I've known people that have worked for him for years, and he phones them up and he says, hi, how are you doing? And they start to talk business. He goes, no, how are you? How's the kids? How's the husband? How's the life? You know, tell me you subbed your toe a month ago. How are you doing? And we should do that with our customers. I think it's just brilliant.
You're
And
right,
with our
though.
employees.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, John, you are right, because it's not only that's what trickles off to your staff expressing it to your clients, is showing that interest in the first place. So 100% it goes to your staff, but also to having your staff even extend that. That's the culture.
Well, you see a lot of groups. We've had some on the show, but you see a lot of, actually, there was an interesting video this morning I watched on LinkedIn from Penske, whereas basically a lady who's a service writer talking about how she got in the car business, which was interesting, probably more from a recruitment point of view, but it was very more of a story. But the thing, the group that we've had on the show, the Centes group, a lot lately, and for a while, they basically do videos all the time about, not about, you know, who's the best salesperson in the universe, but just talking about their staff. Like, here's a person, they've been with us for 3 years, here's a person, they've been with us for 5 years, here's a new person, whatever. but it's more about their staff than it is about anything else. And I think the thing that's really interesting about that is very few dealers do that. I mean, it's very unusual. So it stands out.
Recognizing tenure should be one of your biggest claim to fame right now.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? I mean, people you see in the industry, a lot of long-term people are no longer there anymore.
No.
And yet they're the ones that know the process inside and out. Of course, some people say they're the ones that ignore it. But yeah, you basically have to acknowledge people. We're not getting late, but we're getting close to the hour, and we should move on, Ian. And
any final questions from anybody in the audience, or any final thoughts from any of our guests?
I really enjoy being on a panel with John and Brandy. This was I've done a few episodes with you guys over the years, and this was one of the funner ones, or one of the ones I really enjoyed. So thank you guys.
Well, remember to
You guys
tell
are awesome,
everybody.
John and Brandy.
Tell
Likewise.
everybody, because we like more people. We like more tuning in. And like we said, our days of the podcasts, we don't get to react so well. And you know, some of our best ideas for shows have come from actually the audience.
Yeah.
And you know, we look at some of the people that are on there, and you know, some of the ideas that we get are phenomenal. And it is very true.
With your renovation.
You're there, renovation there, and they're tearing it down and gutting it. So it's going to be a very fun day today.
And this is one of the only shows we have not heard a dog bark.
That's because all three of mine are in the back. I had to go outside. So you're welcome.
And actually, I must say, for speaking of audience, this has been a very quiet audience, this show.
Yeah, where's the questions?
Lots of questions.
No questions at all.
Well,
Maybe we were just that good in entertaining. We were answering the questions.
Well, Troy Glenn is usually a person that comes on that asks lots of questions. And just final comments from any of our guests, or because you answered all of our other questions that we had, all my questions I have notes for. You guys just asked them. I think Ian, you and I just got to learn just to shut up and let them take over.
Well, I got to say that I certainly enjoyed being on the panel this week. And as you well know, I enjoy every week because I am a regular.
You are our AutoHub groupie.
And Brandy, any final thoughts?
No, I really just enjoyed the panel. I enjoyed the discussion. It is something I'm very passionate about. You know, in my career, I got to a point where I was, you know, at a store for about 2 years, and things about the store bothered me. It was process, it was lack of, it was, you know, customer experience. So that's when I kind of transitioned into the contract side, and I could just jet in and out of stores and do relief. And so the conversation is huge to me because I have witnessed a lot of stores, how they're doing things, how they're not doing things, successes. Yeah, all of it matters. And you know, when I asked about the question, do we care about who we work with? For the record, I do. And you know what, and not that, you know, but I do. When we talk about that buy-in, I want to work with stores that actually consciously want to be better. Because I'll tell you something, I've been doing this 23 years, and I will be an audience in any scenario where I can learn. And I will constantly absorb everything I can, the people around me, what they have to say. It's constantly being taken in. And so it does matter to me to go to stores that are that way, that have that culture built in. I can work with that all day long. I settled myself in 2021 to kind of standardizing effort, attitude, effort, and intention. If you have a good attitude, I can work with you. If you make good effort, I can work with you. And if you have good intentions, I will absolutely forgive. So, you know, it's it does matter to me. And I want to be with the stores where their customer experience matters as well.
No question.
That is awesome. My thing is, if you're in Canada and you're looking for those things, process improvement, reach out to John and Brandy. If you're in the US, hit me on LinkedIn. Let's talk.
Absolutely.
But other than that, thank you, Ian and Jeff. Y'all are awesome, man.
Thanks.
Well, Brian, I've got to tell you, I think you're now challenging John for dulcet tone champion of the auto. Ian, I'll leave it with you now.
Thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for all the input, and have yourself a great week.
All right, y'all.
Thank
Bye,
you.
folks. Be safe.
Thank
Take
you.
care, you too.